Hey everybody, in Unreal Engine 5.4's motion design toolset, there's a really cool feature that allows one object to mask another. So here I've got a rectangle and I've kind of modified some of the corners and all, but if I add a second rectangle and I've got this unlocked so I can make this big enough to cover that, I can use this rectangle to mask the first rectangle. So this is rectangle 2 right here. Maybe let me give it a little bit of right slant there. In fact, there we go. I need to probably extend this a little bit, and now it can completely cover the first one if I wanted to. So this object can mask this one. If I go into the motion design operator stack, I can go ahead and add a modifier, and I'm going to choose mask set. So that's going to set this first object as a mask. It disappears, and then I'll select my original rectangle, and I'm going to add a modifier for the mask apply. So the mask that is using channel 0 will get applied to it. The first rectangle has a mask also of channel 0, and that is set as the mask. And so my first rectangle doesn't appear until I bring this one over it. And so that makes us have the ability to make some cool animations, right? So with this selected, I can add it to my sequencer, add a transform track, key it where it is, and then, oh, I'm sorry, I'm already at the end of my animation, so let me key it right here, and then go to the beginning of the animation and pull that away, and I get, a nice little frame, little reveal. Okay, cool. So that works out great, but I'd like to get a little more style, a little more flair in this frame. And so in my content browser, I've already loaded automotive materials. And let's say I want to use this orange material. Now, in preparation for this, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the mask apply, mask read. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to take this automotive material, drag it and drop it onto that rectangle. And so I've got some really cool iridescent effects here going on because of my lighting. Again, rectangle 2 is still around and it's set up to mask. But if I select rectangle 1 and I try to add that masking ability, so mask apply, I get these errors here. And the reason is that the masking is actually enabled by a special material function that is created inside the motion design plugin. And we're going to need to apply that material function to any material that we want to use the masking feature with. So let's get down to it. So I'm just going to double click on my orange car paint here. And this is a material instance, so I don't have access to the node graph yet. I'm going to go and double click on the parent to open up the node graph. And we see that opacity is grayed out because we're using a blend mode opaque for this material. So I am going to change this to masked, and that'll enable our opacity mask. However, the function I need is called mfapply mask 2D. And if I right click here and I type in mfapply, the mask 2D, it doesn't appear here. So I'm going to have to go fetch that from the motion design plugin. So let me bring this window out of the way a little bit more here. And in my settings, I already have show engine content enabled and show plugin content enabled. So if I go over here to my asset browser, I can collapse content and I have engine, and I'll go into plugins. I'll scroll all the way down to the M's and find motion design right there. And sure enough, there's a folder called mask resources. So if I select that, there's the material function itself, mfapply mask 2D. And conveniently enough, thank you to the team that developed the motion design toolset, we've got this avalanche mask usage example. So if I double click on that, we can see that they're feeding an alpha channel. It looks like it's solid white into the opacity input of this mfapply mask, and then the opacity output is going into the opacity mask of the material. So to get this over to my car paint, I'm just going to select it, Control C, and go to my car paint master. Maybe zoom out a little bit over here, and Control V to paste that in. We'll connect opacity to the opacity mask. And finally, I do want to get an initial input into opacity. So I'm just going to hold the number 1 key down, and that will give me a single value parameter. And I'll put a 1 in there as my default value. And let me convert this to a parameter. Right click, convert to parameter, and I'll just call this opacity init. There we go. And then I can drag that 1 into opacity. So by default, we have a 1 in opacity, which means it is solid. But then the material function opacity mask comes into play. And that way, if the motion design masking is activated, it'll be used. So I should be able to save this now. And once that's saved out, I can go ahead and close all my material windows. And the errors went away, but just to make sure everything's working, I'm just going to remove that and add that modifier once again, mask apply, and no errors this time. What do you know? Let's check out our sequence. We'll go back to the beginning. Our rectangle disappears, play it in, and it is revealed. All right, so I hope this helps. Until next time, have fun.